Hey everyone, Alex here. I am here today with Samantha Carter. Samantha is a student at Eastern Michigan University in the Applied Drama and Theater for the Young program. And she's spent years doing inclusive theater. And today she's going to talk about how theater can be inclusive to people with autism and how they can learn to appreciate the benefits of inclusive theater. So thanks for being here, Samantha.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Definitely. So the first question is, how long have you been involved in working with children with autism in theater?
Yeah, so I started back in 2017 when I was an undergraduate student at Michigan State University. And there was a company called Fourth Wall Theater Company, which is not called Fourth Wall Theater Company anymore. It's called Open Spot Theater Company. So look it up, very cool. But they taught classes for neurodiverse and physically diverse students of all ages, ranges, and abilities. And I started volunteering for them, and their passion was just theater for all. And I thought that was rocking. I really had no information, but I just started working with them and I fell in love with them. And so they're based in Michigan, but they've recently expanded to Virginia, Minnesota, and Georgia. So
Okay.
if you're in any of those states, you can check it out. Also in New York, there is a similar theater called Collab Theater that also teaches neurodiverse students as well. And while I was at Michigan State, I joined the Sensibility Ensemble, which is basically just a group of students that works to create shows to tour to special needs classrooms in the greater East Lansing and Lansing area. So I worked on 3 different shows with them. I worked on Farm a Musical Experience, which is a multi-sensory interactive musical for neurodiverse individuals. And it's about a lost sock. There's 2 socks and he's lost his soulmate. I also worked on Soda Pop Shop, which is a show that focuses on anxiety coping strategies. And it's a 1950s style musical that centers on the main character, Jitterbug, who is a nervous and jittery bug. And throughout the show, we explored different types of coping strategies, which was really cool. And then I also worked on Pond Adventure, which was actually a collaborative piece with Professor Sean A. and his sociosensory architecture, which was really cool. He works at U of M, and he actually has a child with autism, and he has these really rockin' sculptures that like when you press on the fabric, things will happen. So like depending on how much pressure you put, so like you press on it and fish will swim around your hands. So that was super cool. And that one was about working on rehearsing essential life skills. So like through the show, it was like, we're gonna order an ice cream, things such as that. And all of those shows toured to really small classrooms, so like 6 to 10 students at a time. And and that's how I got here.
Well, that's fantastic. I'm so glad that you had a lot of experience, and I think that I think that sculpture where you touch and it makes different things, that's the coolest thing I've ever heard. And very because students with autism, including myself, learn best with touch. I'm a tactile learner. It's a very rare type of learner, but it's I think the most important. Like to that. Totally. Overall, what has your experience been like with these children?
Oh, it's been awesome. It's actually so I started my college experience as an acting major, and I was like, oh, I'm off to Broadway, you know. And then I started doing these shows and it sort of changed my trajectory. And I fell in love with teaching and working with students. And yeah, it really changed my whole trajectory and everything.
Sure.
It's been great. I love working, teaching acting to my students, and also, traveling to the schools and even seeing students once is like just an amazing experience, because especially for, those that are in SPED classrooms, they might not always be included in assemblies, or they're taken out because the way that they experience art isn't the same as everybody else, which I
Sure.
just think that's not cool. Everybody should
Yeah.
experience art.
Yeah, absolutely. Why did you choose this mission of bringing theater to those with disabilities?
Yeah. I honestly think it's very simple. I just think that everybody has felt left out at some point in their lives,
Totally.
and it feels awful. And so I think it's really important that we reach out and include everybody in every way that we can. And I think art is for everyone and it shouldn't be gate kept. And I think for a long time, art has been for, affluent, neurotypical, able-bodied, often, white participants. And that's so silly. Like, art is for everybody. It should be appreciated
Absolutely.
and experienced by everybody.
Yeah, and I will say, like, when a good form of art happens, like when a truly inspirational form of art and just beautiful, and like you can tell they put the time in and were serious. There's not a single kid that doesn't leave inspired.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. And I mean, that's the beauty of it. I think theater is one of the only things in the real world that's truly accommodating for everyone. Because I know, like, a lot of these activities, they say they're inclusive for everyone, but in reality, there's something going on beneath the surface, and it's just like, no, we definitely, it's definitely not for everyone. There's exclusions, and that's not the case with theater. So that's beautiful, honestly.
Yeah, I agree with you.
So have you used strategies that you use in your productions, for example, to help autistic students communicate their thoughts better? Do you use your strategies in your program to autistic individuals in your personal life?
Yeah. So I'm actually a nanny, and
Uh,
I think lots of the skills that I've learned teaching students with different disabilities transfer over well to honestly working with everybody.
yes.
I think that it's made me more empathetic, truly, and looking at everybody as if they're just a human, and especially children, they're just a human, just like me. They have the same emotions, just like me. Maybe they don't know how to regulate them in the way that I know how to, but that's okay. Like, there's different things that we can do. We can take a break. We can do some breathing exercises. We can do an activity that they really enjoy. But I think really looking at behavior as communication instead of as something someone is doing to me.
Right.
Like someone's having this behavior. They're just trying to communicate something. They're trying to communicate a need, whatever it is, whether they need attention, whether they're hungry, whatever it is. So just looking at behavior as more as nobody's trying to specifically be mean to Sam, they're just trying to express their needs.
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. I worked at a summer camp over the summer, and during training, they were like, if a kid ever is angry and is inappropriate with their behavior, they're not being bad. They're looking for help,
Yeah.
and we need to provide that help. So yeah, that's something that's easy to understand, but pretty hard to put into practice, especially in the moment.
Yeah.
And so I think like the more experience you have, the better you get at that. And from my understanding, you have years of experience with this, so I'm very glad that you're definitely putting the words into action right there. That it's like you don't take it personal,
No.
and I think it's great. So
Yeah.
yeah. How do children with autism respond to theater?
Totally. It's this one's tough because it's really hard to generalize because, all humans are so different. But I mean, when you're talking about having like a neurotypical audience versus an autistic audience, I think, the general ones are people may roam around the room, people may stim, people may sing along. And then a lot of the times as actors, when you're like scoring up your script, you're like, yes, this line is funny. People are going to laugh right here. But when you're working with different audiences with disabilities, there's various other things that they might think are funny
Totally. Yeah.
versus what you have said, oh, this line is funny, this is where they're going to laugh. So from actor's perspective, it might be a very different show because people are reacting at different points.
Yeah. Yeah, I've honestly never understood that when it comes to script writing. It's like you truly never know when people are going to laugh and when they're not. I mean, even neurotypicals have different senses of humor and different levels of understanding of jokes. And I was reading this article for Emily's class. It was like you could have a very like an audience with a very good sense of humor one night, and then a very different sense of humor the next night. Like it's
So
just
true.
it varies not only from group to group, age to age, but individual to individual. So you definitely have to be on your toes if you don't get the reaction you want.
Yeah, especially speaking as, as someone who acts, when you go from rehearsing for months and months and you have your director there, right?
Mm-hmm.
And your director has their own sense of humor. They think certain things are funny. So you kind of get used to it. Like, okay, rocking. These lines are the lines that are funny. I do this thing, everybody laughs. And then you get an audience and it's completely different. So you have to be able to
Yeah,
be on your toes.
that certainly can be an ego shatterer at times. So you need to be adaptive. Yeah.
Yes, yes.
So, have you seen any success stories or breakthroughs in your program for autistic children?
Yeah. I think there's been a ton. I think first of all, from my perspective, I think whether there's like a success story or anything, it's successful because bringing theater to everybody is important. But I know that
Absolutely.
when we toured to different schools, we would have many, many, many times where teachers would come up to us afterward and they would be like, oh, thank you so much. These students, they don't get included. They don't get to participate in music class because,
Mhm.
they're too loud or they're stimming or this and that. And so they
Yep.
have to be removed from the room. And this is the first time that they were allowed to stay and experience it how they wanted to experience it. And you could even tell the teachers like had their guard up at the beginning, and when we were like, no, it's okay, like they're great, they're allowed to, if they want to run backstage and see what's going on back there, totally cool, totally fine with me. We've had instances where students have run up on stage and sat in an actor's lap during the show. That's great. They feel comfortable. I'm glad that they feel comfortable and they're experiencing it in that way. But of course, the teachers were like, oh no. And as soon as we were like, no, it's great. It's awesome. There's no wrong way to do art. Just the teachers felt a lot better. And then we also had a lot of occurrences where during the show, a lot of the shows that we would tour to the schools during the year are very interactive. So there's drumming, we're dancing with the students are up on stage, feeling the set, helping us search for things. And sometimes the most active student, we would have a teacher come up to us and say, that student has never engaged with their peers. That
Wow.
student has not made eye contact with anybody all year. And of course, it's shocking to us because they were the most active person, but
That's
it was
incredible.
theater that was able to do that for them. That's what made them feel it. And we've had lots of other occurrences where, a lot of the times we ask students their names during the show. The students share their names. We use their names in a name song. And I would be like, that student hasn't talked all year.
Mhm.
That student hasn't said anything all year. Never would have known because they participated
Yes.
so fully, so engaged. And yeah, that's just been really cool. I also had, this isn't autistic, but I had a student with cerebral palsy in one of my classes, and she used a iPad as a speech device. And she was always using her iPad, and she had told me that she loves coming to theater class because this is the only time where she's able to talk and people will take the time to listen.
Wow.
Because she talked at a slower pace, people assumed that she was unintelligent, which was incorrect. She was one of the most intelligent people that I've ever met, but she didn't feel comfortable using her voice because people wouldn't listen to her when she didn't speak fast enough or what they thought was fast enough.
Wow.
So she was one of the students that I got to work with for 4 years. And it was just so beautiful the last year that I was working with her. When we did the show, she decided not to use her iPad because she felt comfortable that, no matter how long it took her to get through her lines, everybody was going to listen, everybody was going to pay attention, and we were
Yeah.
going to respect her time and her voice. And I think it was just so empowering. I could see for her is that she felt really heard and listened to, which she should have felt all along. People should have been doing that all along, but it wasn't happening.
Absolutely. And I really hope to incorporate that into my classroom, just like giving everyone the time to listen and be themselves and speak out. Because and I really hope I'm in a community where that sort of theater is taking place. Like those certain companies like come to my school. Man, that would just be incredible because for me, I assume this is a fairly new thing. Growing up as an autistic child, I didn't have any of that. I basically had to figure it out all on my own and just like be my own advocate for so many years in order to get to this point. And I think I turned out really well. And I think the future is definitely bright. If the autistic children of today have that resource and have that support, then they have a hope that I simply didn't have.
Yeah.
And it'll be an amazing generation if they keep it up.
Yeah, there's also something to say about when people from a certain group don't see themselves in the people that work in a certain field. They don't believe that they can do that job.
Mm-hmm.
So for theater professionals to say, oh no, like there aren't very many people with disabilities in our field. Why is that? Well, it's because we haven't given anybody the opportunity. So
Right.
for people to see people like them stepping up and doing things like that, it will be very empowering.
Right, and that's a great point you brought up because I've been in contact with a few business owners, and I'm like, hey, why don't you guys set up autism work fairs? Like people with autism who are confident that they can find a job, but aren't confident that the employer knows that they have what it takes.
Yeah.
So just setting up specific events specifically for autism,
Yeah.
because the unemployment rate for people with college degrees is ridiculous. I don't know if you've heard any of the rates, but it's, well, first of all, only something like 7% of autistic people who graduate high school get a degree in the first place, and then with degrees, 85% of those are unemployed.
Wow, that's a shame.
It is, yeah. So unemployment's one of by far one of the biggest issues with this, and you're absolutely right. Like theater can help them become more confident and more confident to work with others, and that's going to make a big impact.
Yeah.
Final question: what is your message to parents of autistic children who come across this video?
Yeah. I think
with a bang.
I think that just encouraging your children to see creativity and play. Play is good for everyone, all people, even adults, especially adults who need to be more in touch with play. Theater builds self-confidence, it builds empathy, it builds team building skills. So if at all possible, get your kiddos into a theater class if that's something that they're interested in. And I actually have something from a little article here from Envisioning the Future of Theater for Young Audiences, and it's from the National Endowment for the Arts in 2020. And they did some research. They were trying to figure out, what does theater do for people? Why is theater a positive experience? Why should people do theater? And they said they had an unexpected outcome with their New Victory research. And New Victory Theater is a theater in New York City that does children's theater, and they also have after school programs. But people that participated in their 3-year program, their after school program, exhibited a more optimistic outlook toward their future than peers who did not, because the children could imagine different futures. So they were saying that young people discover and develop hope through performing arts.
That is what theater does right there. Fantastic.
Yeah, it does. So get out there and take a theater class and see some theater.
Oh yeah, definitely. Well, Samantha, thanks so much for coming on. Do you have anything to add about this particular subject?
Let's see. I think just lastly, there's a couple different types of accessible theater. So there are multisensory audience specific shows, and I'm sure that the industry will come up with an umbrella term and a name for that shortly, but again, it's sort of newer. But these are going to be the experiences that are made for a specific group, made for, so they might say something like, oh, for autistic audiences or for this specific group. There's also sensory friendly shows, which EMU is actually doing a sensory friendly show in like 2 weeks. So that's cool. Yeah, I'm running it. I'm the accessibility designer. We're doing the crucible.
I'll buy tickets.
Yes.
Yeah.
But sensory friendly shows are shows that are adapted for various neurodiverse audiences, and sensory friendly shows are sometimes called autism friendly, autistic performances. But again, they're for everyone and all, and people with all sorts of disabilities.
Absolutely.
For anyone at all. And those shows typically have lower light and sound levels. They have tactile tours, touch tours. So sometimes they'll be on the stage and you get to touch the set. Sometimes you get to talk to the actors and touch the costumes. Sometimes you touch some of the props. Depends on the theater. And a lot of them offer sensory tools. So headphones or sunglasses or fidget spinners, things like that. They also offer a lot of times social stories and quiet rooms. So if you're overstimulated during the performance, you can exit. You can chill out for a moment or two and come back whenever you're feeling ready, if you're feeling ready. And they usually have the house lights. They usually blacken the theater when it's time for the show. They keep them at half up so that you're able to see, you're able to roam. And then, as well as sensory friendly, there's accessibility shows. And accessibility shows are typically designed for people that are deaf or hard of hearing, or people that are blind or have low vision. And those shows feature typically maybe a hearing loop, some assistive listening devices, touch tours as well for those that are blind or have low vision. And also they do audio descriptions, which is really cool. There's usually somebody backstage or under the stage that is talking into a microphone right into headphones. And they tell you what's going on stage, movement wise or light wise, for individuals that might not be able to see, so that everybody is on the same page. So those are the couple different types of shows that you will see.
That's fantastic. And I certainly look forward to that experience in the future.
Yes, it's going to be great. I'm excited.
All right. Well, yeah, as I said, Sam, thanks so much for coming on. And I hope a lot of people watch this video and maybe consider the possibilities of a great future for many autistic children.
Yes, amazing. Thank you for having me.
Totally. See you soon.
Bye.